So I have an announcement about the final. Ha. But then I wouldn't have a bunch of grading to do after classes are over.
You can just pretend.
Oh, I do anyway.
Use your imagination. Just write essays on uniforms and you can print those.
No, I am going to have an option. It's going to be pretty much the same format as the last gig. But the one small caveat that might appeal to a very small minority of you is that you can submit your own essay question to me for approval if you'd like to write on something that you're interested in instead of something I'm interested in. So and you'll need to do that by let's say next Monday, and you'll just email it to me and I'll say hell to the no or whatever, man. That sort of thing. Questions? Yeah.
Can we turn in the essay before the test?
Sure. All right. Yeah.
Are the essays up online?
Not yet. They will be. I'll do that this weekend. Okay. So and now we've got this this Winter's Tale play. Slows down a little bit, doesn't it? The reading. It's good gravy. I spend a lot of time on those stupid reading questions. Everything's so packed. I mean, you can tell it's just really, really dense. I mean, there's really at least 2.5 plays in this, and yeah. So there's that. It does the next part does speed up quite a bit actually. The first 2 acts, the tragic sequence, as it's sometimes called, is really dense, really tough hacking. You need your machete. Leontes isn't always entirely making the most clear statements. And so we've got a quiz on the first 2 acts, first 3 acts. Yeah. Okay. So questions? Yes, ma'am.
I've seen 2, number 16. How does Paulina respond to Leontes' response, and how does her vow to not admonish Leontes?
Yeah, there's a lot of typos. I did the questions on I was changing the RAM in my computer, so I typed them all on my iPad. I spelled Polixenes wrong every single time. Polixenes? Anywho, so that question. So does anyone have an answer for that? Suggestion? So let's think of where it's at. 3-2, you said?
Yeah.
All right. So Paulina's admonishing Leontes. She's sort of she's not real polite, is she? She's sort of what's your sense? Do we like Paulina? She's does she seem mean? Not mean enough? Tell it like it is.
She just tells us what it is.
Okay.
But she has no filter.
Yeah. Say compromised prefrontal cortex. Everything's kind of squirts through. Okay, and the question again was.
How does Paulina respond to Leontes' response?
Yeah. All right. So first of all, what is Leontes' response to Paulina's punishment?
Sort of like, yeah, I deserve the worst.
He sounds kind of into it. Go on, go on. Thou canst not speak too much. I have deserved all tongues to talk their bitterest. Go on, go on. Yeah, I think there's a little masochism there. And then, so Paulina, all of a sudden, I'm sorry for it, all faults I make. When I shall come to know them, I do repent. Alas, I have showed too much the rashness of a woman. So how would we characterize that response if we were answering a question?
More so.
Yeah, but then, so it's remorseful. Well, ostensibly remorseful, right? Because what's gone and what's past help should be past grief. Do not receive affliction at my petition. I beseech you rather, let me be punished. I minded you of what you should forget. That and then she's saying, I'll speak no more. I'll speak no more. I'll say nothing. But you know, like I'll when she's saying I'll speak no more. I'll speak no more. I'll say nothing. I just really loved your queen, and you really screwed the pooch on this one, and you're a horrible person. But I'm not going to say anything. All right. Yes, no? Okay. Does that answer your question? All right, I'm not supposed to answer the question, so that's the last time I'm ever going to do that again. Okay, any other questions? No? Sweet.
Oh, 28
On the one with 28?
Act 1, 2, it was, yeah, you wrote 28 questions. It was, what is Camillo's condition? No, it was Camillo dare not space, cannot space, and may not. I have the same 3 answers for, I have 3 of the same answers.
All right, does anyone want to,
Dare not know what bothers Leontes, cannot say what bothers Leontes, and may not say what bothers Leontes. That's not right.
I thought it was dare not know, cannot name the disease, and may not answer. It's all split up though in text.
yeah. Anyone else?
I have no say answer.
No say answer?
What was Blake's answer? Disease, speak.
It would have been cool for me to put some line numbers or page numbers or something.
Dare not know, cannot name the disease, and may not answer. That's what I have.
Yeah, that looks right. There's no, I dare not, do not. There's that hilarious scene. We'll talk about that. And I really like it when we're going to talk about it, but I can't pass it without saying it. Leontes asked, do you think I'm such a dunderhead that I would do something this stupid? And Camilla says, I must believe you.
Wait, what was the answer? I couldn't hear that.
One more time.
Dare not know, cannot name the disease, and may not answer.
Yeah, may not answer, cannot name the disease. I dare not know, my lord. 19 and 20, that's lines 378, 387, and 398.
For answer for, what's that, 1920?
Years.
Oh,
Pages 19 and 20,
okay.
and then the line numbers for the.
I had a question from that act too.
Okay.
What is the nature of the planet? If we know to barricade the belly, what disease do many have and not know it? Was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
What numbers?
I read it a couple times. I couldn't find it.
2 what?
20 in that same section. And
Yeah. So, what is the nature of the planet? What can be done to barricade the belly? What disease do many have and not know it?
Nature of the planet's body.
Yeah. All right, so there's one.
What did you say?
Body.
To barricade the belly, I got to only have one possible father.
There's nothing that can barricade the belly. That's what
I think you're taking it to a logical conclusion, which is fine, but I think the text says no barricado for a belly.
where is that?
Page 13 or line 204. I know, and this kind of did mean questions, huh? But you see, if I just did like comprehension questions, I mean, this is a very complicated thing. It's a complicated couple of acts, especially this first one. And what was another one?
is the disease being controlled?
Yeah, let's see. Many thousand ons have the disease and feel it not. How now, boy? So it takes a little bit of an interpretive jump. Mr. Rose says, cuckolded is the disease, and it's in that same passage. So it's be it concluded, no barricado for a belly. Know it, and it will let in and out the enemy with bag and baggage. That's charming. It's a lovely, lovely image of sex. Many thousands on have the disease and feel it not. How now, boy? He's saying this to his little son. It's a good thing he died, man. He spent the rest of his life in therapy.
Act 2, Scene 3, number 9. Why doesn't anyone call it a tyrant to the tyrant's face?
Yeah, so this is something that Leontes says.
because it'll make a tyrant more inclined to be a tyrant. It's like, oh, tyrant, I'll show you tyrant, off with his head. Castrate.
Marvelous, marvelous.
What does Camilo's notice have on Leontes? That was in the last act, last scene of Act 1. Yeah. I wasn't sure what they meant by notice. So right there.
Anyone have something for that?
What's the question?
What effect does Camilo's notice have on Leontes?
What number is it?
21?
Oh, is it kind of like, in Othello when, Iago, like, he would say something and it would kind of like trick up Othello to where he would like kind of think, oh, well, maybe they are doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we had, so Camillo, what did Camillo notice?
He was uncomfortable, or that he had pain? Is that what we're talking about?
Isn't it what he say that her entreaty, Polixenes?
Yeah,
That he what?
that he stayed at Hermione's entreaty. That Polixenes. Now, see, I spelled it wrong so many times I can't even remember it. Polixenes. That Polixenes stayed at Hermione's entreaty, and so and then so Leontes interprets that as, does anyone remember?
Is it proof that they're cheating?
Yeah, or that at least that people are thinking that or saying that. So good answer, Jamie. Now are we done? All right. All right, I give you 2 extra seconds. Please pass them up. There may be in a cup a spider steeped, and one may drink, depart, and yet partake no venom, for his knowledge is not infected. But if one present the abhorred ingredient to his eye, make known how he hath drunk, he cracks his gorge, his sides with violent hefts. I have drunk and seen the spider. Leontes. Situation?
So he's insinuating how to kill him. That's what it seemed like to me.
Okay.
Was it over dinner? I was gonna put that in, but I crossed it out somehow.
I think if I recollect correct, it's just one of his kind of musings, and it's a famously obscure passage. He's got a few of them, to the point where some eminent Shakespeareans have just taken a look at these passages, and after 400 years of criticism and explication, they say this is indecipherable. Anyone that pretends to understand this passage is lying, or wrong, or both.
Are you saying that if you drink something with a spider in it, you're better off not knowing that there was a spider in it?
So it's an old piece of folk wisdom that says that if you see the spider get dipped in your milk, then the milk kills you. But if they dip the spider in the milk and you don't see it, it has no effect on you.
Isn't that how they were gonna kill Polixenes? Or no?
Oh, they were going to poison his drink,
And was this?
and I mean possibly. I mean this is the fascinating angle that I had not thought of. Maybe they were going to spider steep it. I don't think that spider steeping actually works because of the fact that it's a version of if the tree falls in the forest, does anyone hear it argument, right? There's like if you don't see somebody shoot you in the head, does your head still explode? Well, yes. This is it's a biological thing. Well, I don't know. This is contentious. This plays all about magical thinking. So we've got to.
I look at it as like the placebo effect, where it's like if you don't know there's anything different about it, then you're like doesn't affect you. But if you know it, like even if there is nothing to affect you, like your mind will make you think you're being affected. So it's like if you see the spider, then you're gonna freak out and it poisons you. If you don't know any better.
Yeah.
But it was kind of
Yeah. I think that's a completely legitimate angle. I think you were first.
I thought it was just like completely naive logic. Like, I don't know if he
Yeah, so, and we saw Othello
Yeah.
at times make this argument.
Yeah, I thought it was sort of like suggestive of being a couple. Like unless you know what's happening and other people know what's happening, then you're not one.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to prove affirmatively that I'm an idiot, but the, she's married to Polixenes?
Hermione?
Yeah?
No.
She's not?
No.
Alright, see, this just makes no sense.
All right, now it's going to make more sense now. That'd be an interesting twist, though, if Leontes was insanely jealous over somebody that Polixenes was sleeping with his wife.
They had a courtship? Is that
All right, well, we're going to look at that because I mean, there's something. I mean, that's one of the things we're looking at today is the Hermione, and just before we get into it. So do we feel like Leontes has is he completely off the wall here, thinking that there's something brewing between Polixenes and Hermione?
No.
All right, let's vote. Who thinks he's completely off the wall? Baseless accusations. Who thinks? Okay. Who thinks that absolutely that Polixenes' wife, who's I think she's dead by now. They don't really make it clear. And Hermione had like crazy, mad sex parties back in the day. Okay. We'll see how this plays out. So, and I think we got to the significance. I want to spend a little bit more time with the significance when we go over the quizzes from now on. So the significance, I would say the significance is that this ties into the overall theme in The Winter's Tale of the nature of knowledge and what constitutes proof, and if there is an objective reality and how your perception of that reality, interacts with each other. And so, does spider poison kill you if you don't see it? Are you robbed if you don't know it? That's a better argument, right? If somebody steals a pair of shoes and you never even notice, were you really robbed? That's sort of a different question. Okay, number 2. I do confess I loved him as an honor he required, with a love even such, so and no other as yourself commanded.
Hermione?
During
Okay.
the mock trial or
Hmm?
during the trial.
Yeah, the sort of yeah. So it's during the little mock trial, and the significance is. I did the first significance. Somebody give me a significance.
Well, I think she's just trying to say anything because he's the judge, so she knows that, with her words will only go so far, and then trying to say that she's innocent. So I think she's just trying to say, you're the one who told me to convince him to stay.
That works especially if you connect it to the context, because she's like, no matter what I say, you're batshit crazy. I'm not going to convince you.
I said that it proves that he sort of set in motion his own suspicion, and that shows it to be totally irrational.
That works too. All right, those will both work on the exam. And we'll do number 3. Will you go yet? Force me to keep you as a prisoner, not like a guest. So you shall pay your fees when you depart, and save your thanks. How say you, my prisoner or my guest?
Hermione and Polixenes.
Mm-hmm. That's Hermione.
That's the entreaty. That's the significance.
What's that?
That's the entreaty, so that's the significance of it in the story.
Okay. Anyone want to give a different, less profound, more nuanced? It happens, man. All right, so this is when we're getting toward the too hot revelation of Leontes, right? And as you can tell from my reading, I think that it might be indicative of a sort of flirtation thing. I mean, if I'm unfortunately male, but if some girl at a party was saying this to me, I would think she was coming on to me. And we do know that males overinterpret, come-ons, but I would be like, I need to step away from this person because this is getting frightening.
That would be pretty clear, I think.
Yeah. Like, oh, yeah. Yeah, you know what? This would be me. You know what? I'll stay as your guest, but I got to go out and get some eggs. Be right back. So, all right. So what is the oracle's pronouncement, and how does Leontes? And that was a gimme. That was off the Garber quiz. What's the oracle's pronouncement?
She's chaste.
The what?
She's chaste.
Yeah, she's chaste. Everybody's right except for Leontes, who's a moron, and that's almost word for word. And how does Leontes initially respond to it? Yeah. After he says, and what was the condition that he made that he was going to base his decision on?
The oracle.
Yeah. It's the coin flip, right? Confirmation bias. As long as it agrees with me, I will do whatever the coin says. All right. So, yeah. Let's say. So the winters. This will start off with a little quasi-new historicist anecdote. So, Pandasto and is the prose romance that much of A Winter's Tale is based on. There's no Autolycus, and there's no Hermione resurrection scene. A few differences is that it's usually considered a little bit of a darker deal because the title character Pandasto, who's Leontes in A Winter's Tale, he sets daughter off to sea, causes wife and son to die. Yeah, that happens here. And daughter falls in love with Durastus. He changed the name to Florimel. You'll see Dorat. I mean, that's great. I mean, there's a romance hero for you, Durastus. They elope. So this is all happens in the play. But a twist is that Pandasto Leontes character full-fledged falls in love with his daughter that he doesn't know is his daughter, and like big time, and like tries to pull her, and wow. So and then and then when he finds out that she's his daughter, he kills himself, and then everyone else lives happily ever after.
So that's different than ours?
Yeah. You want me to give away the ending for anyone that doesn't know?
No.
Okay. I think I already have, but. Also, the name that Shakespeare uses for Leontes' ill-fated son, Mammalia, who, wow, there were some interesting spellings of that on the quiz. Mortimer. My favorite was Melonia, because it's mammalia, which refers to the mammal lactating organ, but then Melonia sort of does too, but in a more vulgar way. So I thought it was funny. I always have to explain jokes, but anyway, the name is taken from another prose romance from the same author, which just fun trivia: a mirror looking glass for the ladies of England that was addressed to gentlemen. And then John Pitcher, who's a critic, has argued that Autolycus, who is my favorite thing that ever happened to the world, not named Thersites, is borrowed from the author of Pandasto's most famous work, which was called Robert Greene's Groat's Worth of Wit. And everybody that knows that's taken, and for many of you, this is your first Shakespeare class, so this is the obligatory thing that you've got to teach all introductory Shakespeare classes, is the earliest known mention of Shakespeare by another author, and incidentally, this might not be right, might not even been written by Greene, is the immortal line ending with, "For there is an upstart crow that with his tiger's heart wrapped in a player's hide supposes he is as well able to bombast out a blank verse as the best of you, and being an absolute jack of all trades, is his own conceit the only shake scene, is in his own conceit the only shake scene in the country." And this is Robert Greene, who wrote all this stuff. He was also a playwright. He's in the early 1590s. He's talking about this upstart crow that's beautifying his prose with our feathers. And so the anti-Stratfordians, you know, the anti-Stratfordians, they're the ones that don't think Shakespeare is really Shakespeare, argue that it's not about Shakespeare, and it might not really be by Green, but who cares? So the two things that he accuses Shakespeare of being is an upstart. So any Anglophiles know what an upstart is? In a class society?
Is it just an amateur or something?
Kind of, but in a class society, it's somebody from a lower class that's pretending to be of a higher class, and it's not a cool thing. It's not like, cause you know, like in the States, you know, social climbing is a legitimate thing to do, and you know, like you want that, supposedly. And supposedly in England, that's not the case. You know, like if you're a merchant, you're supposed to stay a merchant. I don't care how rich you are, you're still not noble. Go drive your yellow Hummer off a cliff, type of thing. And a notable thing is that Robert Greene, who called him an upstart, was probably the son of a middle-class merchant, just like Shakespeare. But he might not have been, so who knows? And then plagiarism, right? So he talks about the upstart crow. It's a talking species of blackbirds, as we know. And beautified with our feathers seems to be informally charging Shakespeare of ripping off Greene and other authors, which of course is true. But everybody did. But anyway, so that was the yeah.
Well, I just want, how did he allegedly rip off of the other authors? I mean, but like just like the plot ideas.
That would be less of a trouble, but there's like lines and stuff was usually where you kind of drew the line with lines. But maybe, I mean, you don't know. I mean, I don't know. I've been studying it for a long time, and it seems like everybody's ripping each other off. So
We don't really have any kind of copyright, right?
no.
It's kind of fair game.
Honor and respect.
Shakespeare was apparently, if we're going by accounts of him, was kind of easygoing. There was a lot of there was a lot of catty playwrights, and I know those of you in theater can't imagine the concept of a catty playwright, but they're always kind of at semi frenemies with each other, and and then literary criticism too. You know, everybody's trying to outwit each other, and everybody's in these wars and stuff. And Shakespeare largely was, whatever. He didn't really get involved. But and then that was from his contemporary Ben Jonson's Mixed Praise. Another two famous quotes about Shakespeare is that from Ben Jonson, who had mixed feelings about his rival. Said that and famously called Shakespeare for all ages. But then also said that "'tis said that Shakespeare never blotted a line. Had he'd have blotted 1,000. Blotted a line means make a correction." So Ben Jonson was slighting him, saying that he should have blotted 1,000 lines because he didn't really like a lot of Shakespeare's stuff, for reasons we won't get into because we don't really care. But Shakespeare never got in these wars, But you think that maybe some critics think that Shakespeare kind of got Barb's back in more subtle ways. For example, Stephen Greenblatt, whose article we didn't read, thinks that Shakespeare might have poked fun at Greene by basing Falstaff on him. Maybe. And but then we get to the funny, the sort of manifest irony. I put manifest in front of it to confuse anyone who wants to accuse me of misusing irony, a la Alanis Morissette. That the guy that accused that the Winter's Tale is ripped off from the guy that accused Shakespeare of ripping off plays and stuff. So that's kind of funny, right? I think it's kind of funny. Manifest irony. So John Pitcher thinks that the character of Autolycus is the playful embodiment of the character that Robert Greene made of Shakespeare in the lampooning of him, the upstart crow that's beautifying with feathers, and Shakespeare's like, okay, yeah, so this is him, so it's a version of Shakespeare, and anyway, so Robert Greene's all over this play. Point being, I hope he's right. I'm not entirely convinced, but this is exactly the kind of ass that I want Shakespeare to be. Not getting in screaming matches across the room, but just, very deftly, very carefully, wittily, just like in a way that, only the person that he was targeting would get, not making these pronouncements, but, All right, So A Winter's Tale, written in 1610, late in Shakespeare's career. Tempest is the only later play that is not a collaboration, probably, depending on what critic you ask. Shakespeare was 46 when he wrote it, which is the same age as Leontes at the end of A Winter's Tale. Like the other romances, many critics see Winter's Tale as a more philosophical or allegorical than the more human or humanistic comedies and tragedies. But I mean, this is wrong, right? We've seen all kinds of philosophies and stuff going on in the other plays, so it's just I guess they just didn't start really reading until they got to these. But that's good, Daniel. Let's make fun of everybody that might be giving you a job. Well played, Crumbo. But something I do think is right is Winter's Tale. So we've got like our desire charts that we've been doing. And I think Winter's Tale is more about the relationship to knowledge aspect of the desire chart. It's in a more fundamental way than even, I mean, we saw it in Henry IV, Macbeth, and Othello. That relationship with knowledge was big things. But in this one, as we saw with the spider steeped in the beverage passage, that it's really fundamental to this, and it turns out that it's really hard to figure out, what is objective reality. And Winter's Tale kind of makes that a problem. That not only what can we know, but is there really anything under there? So it's not a matter of deciding between ocular proof and your own BS or Iago's BS, but even ocular proof turns out to be the product of somebody's BS. We'll get more into that. And I mean, it's sort of hinted at in Vincentio's and Iago's stagings, like what's real and measure for measure, like if somebody's really making everything. I mean, it confuses Angelo and probably Isabella. But I think that we're all going to kind of be confused at the end. So there's a few central questions that sort of haunt Winter's Tale that nobody's, you can't really say that you can answer these definitively. So the first is Leontes really mad? I'll put this question up so we can dwell on it.
What's the alternative?
Maybe that he just kind of allows himself a whim and gets carried away. So why would somebody say that he doesn't really go crazy?
Because he makes that turn. When he realizes that he's been in the wrong and his son dies, he sort of like snaps out of it.
And no faint and wake up, no bonk on the head.
Is that in scene 3?
I think so. Somewhere in there.
Act 3.
Yeah. So so is it a voluntary madness?
I don't think so.
This is why this is an enduring question. So we saw, in Othello, we saw Iago kind of drive Othello mad. We saw the witches kind of drive Macbeth mad by nudging their already latent fantasies. But nobody really nudges Leontes, right? Not in the same way. I mean, there's no...
Dark figure.
Yeah,
Nobody sees it.
yeah. So he's kind of I think it was Harry Berger said that Leontes is just Othello without Iago. He's got his own inner Iago. But maybe Hermione prompts him. Maybe Paulina prompts him.
Maybe there's history that we don't know about.
There's
Yeah.
a bit here about whispering nothing. You asked about that?
Is whispering nothing? Yeah, that's we'll be looking at that.
Oh, okay.
That's a
Sort of instigators,
yeah. It's a phenomenal passage, by the way.
Maybe he's schizo.
Schizo. Yeah. Okay.
But nobody else seems to know what the hell he's talking about.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And he's very, very lyrical, and it's famous for this. He puts together these incredibly complex metaphysical conceits that when you watch the play, it's just blah 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 blah. And you're just like, okay, he's nuts. But then you start looking at it, and you start, and this is why this is famously one of those Shakespeare plays that you have to read. I mean, it's a lot of people's favorite Shakespeare play. Major movies of Winter's Tale, No. No. Has anybody seen performances of it? Any people that go see Shakespeare performances, has anyone seen one? Yeah, it's not. It's tough to stage. It's almost impossible to film because, well, we'll get more into it.
He does have that thing about saying that they've done as he dreamed, like he dreams reality. So that's kind of.
Yeah, he gets. We're going to see tons and tons of this. It keeps coming back to, like the difference between what he's perceiving and what's really going on, and getting confused. And in Act 5, Scene 3, he says, "No settled sense of world can match the pleasure of that madness." So that's usually given in evidence against that he's actually genuinely insane. I mean, if you're enjoying your madness, so like Don Quixote, you're familiar with Don Quixote? Is he really crazy or is he just indulging a whim? Who's to say?
He seems to believe it though.
Yeah, I mean, and then it's just like, and then you start pulling at the questions is, like, so are any of us, like not just doing a version of that? Like when we dress up in our little costumes every day and like go and talk about our little things that are our important things, and like and the things that we say are us, and like my holy opinions and my take on this, and am I just kind of indulging just a little misperception, kind of running away with a little mini madness that's really not that interesting, so nobody writes a play about it?
Well, Leontes isn't really delusional because he snaps out of it, and if it's a delusion, then he's going to be 100% resistant to evidence to the contrary. And see, he starts out that way, but once his son dies, his worldview changes, so it's not really a delusion. So I don't think
And he talks about what happened very lucidly,
yeah.
like during his supposed delirium. He's very like, oh yeah, when this happened, I did this, and so it's a complicated thing. We'll get back to it. The other big question, as I hinted at, is what is real? And how do we know? So for one, we're going to have to give away the ending. Sorry, and it's actually kind of it's the closest thing to suspense. But now it's an academic setting. What can I say? Does Hermione really die? Maybe we can just bracket it off here. Who thinks she's dead? Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I thought too. And then there's a lot of critics that swear up and down that she really did die. But there's two camps. There's the pro-life camp and the pro-death camp. So we're taking a right-wing view of the situation. So that'd be good bumper stickers. Now tell me if you think this would be a great bumper sticker idea. Do you see all those "Be kind," the little green flowers in everybody's car? Yeah. Be quiet. I think this is going to be my $1 million idea. It's like, be quiet. Yeah, it's just a really polite way of saying shut the F up. So the pro-life camp says that Paulina hides Hermione away, and which is hinted at repeatedly, until and then the pro-death says that well, Antigonus saw a ghost of Hermione, right? We all remember that. And so and apparently, as I'm told, that Shakespeare's ghosts only appear with genuinely dead people. This is a great example of. But no, you know what? I'm not gonna behave. That's just preposterous. There's not real ghosts in Shakespeare. It's always a product of somebody's guilty conscience. Like Hamlet's father didn't really. It's not really Hamlet's father's ghost. It's not really Banquo's ghost. It's not. It's just if they would have flubbed. If Banquo was alive in the ditch and he woke up later and got mended, Macbeth still would have saw the stupid ghost. All right. Anyway, so that's where I fall on does Hermione really die? A more interesting question: is Hermione faithful?
There's the whole 9 months after he arrives, there's a child.
There is the 9 months after he arrives, there's a child, which he repeatedly brings to everyone's attention.
Totally missed that.
But it looks like Leontes
Okay, this is a different question than whether or not Leontes is mad, because he could be right or he could be wrong. But, still there's the... All right, so what does the oracle say? And the oracle is supposed to be the divine thingamabob or whatever, right? Yeah.
Everyone's innocent.
And then all the women also say, and the servants. So you've got God, the women, and the servants all saying that she's faithful.
Is chaste just also a synonym for faithful? Because I thought that meant like virginal.
Yeah, well, you can have, it's a, well, obviously if you're not in marriage, chastity is virginity. But, you can be chaste in a marriage and have sex, I think. Is that, any theologians in here?
Odd to me.
Yeah. All right, and then the other evidence that he supposedly resembles his children, or at least, ma'am, I'll call him. And that's again the women say that. He sons to think so too, but I swear I resemble my stepdaughter too. So that can happen. Yeah. And then Camillo says, if she's not, no woman is. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. My thing is, the real question is, well, what do you mean by faithful? What exactly constitutes a breach of faith in a relationship? And where do we draw the line? So obviously, unless you're a swinger, like if your significant other has sex with somebody else, that's sort of a breach in the relationship, right? Anyone disagree? Okay, good. I don't have to deal with that contingency. Yeah. How about a kiss? Who thinks it's okay? On a they'll say regular basis. It wasn't just he was drunk at a party and thought he was kissing a pole.
Depends on the kiss. Depends on the kiss.
Depends on the kiss.
Regularly though, I'm like, no.
Yeah. Okay.
You're doing that.
How about sexting? Is that a breach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Intentionality.
How about having little like or message board relationships and crap, or email relationships with somebody in Australia that get really explicit? Is that cheating?
Yeah.
Okay. How about just flirtation?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Absolutely.
How about fantasizing?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. What if you really want to? All right. Say that this bottle is in a relationship with me, and I really, really want a new bottle, and I think about it all the time, and I'm just like, man, the new bamboo and glass bottle. That's just what I want. Just think, what you thinking about? Oh, nothing. I was just like, I have a math problem. But I don't. Is that cheating? This is so fun. All right, what if you really want to, but you don't even know it? How about that? I've actually encountered this quite a bit, and with all the times I've encountered it, it's been with women for, I can't even fathom how we've gotten this far in class without me talking about the big mirror, the Shakespeare study it's probably for the best. It's probably my inner smarter person shutting me up. But but anyway, I think that it's possible that, all right, say like Desdemona, right? My reading of Desdemona. One of my second hypothesis was that she was really into the proper man guy. His name escapes me. Yeah, that was Ludovico, right? She was really into Ludovico, but her frame of reference couldn't see a way that could be anything because she was so brainwashed, chaste, whatever, that she was just like, and it was only when it was brought to her attention through, ultimately Othello's shenanigans that it was possible to have adultery. He was like, oh, I think I do want it. So, I don't know. Does anyone want to count that? I do. I think that's cheating. I think Abe would agree with me. So, and then there's this, which ties to Leontes' madness. Okay, so, do you really want to know what your significant other really thinks and feels? I mean, really, at any given moment?
No.
Yeah, absolutely freaking not, right? Does anyone want to? Does anyone trust their significant other to that degree that you would want to just watch their, put on the thought vision? And then conversely, would you want your significant other to see what you are really thinking or feeling at any given moment? That would be a deal breaker, right? I mean, could you live with somebody under these conditions? So, and then so we get to the question of, is Hermione really faithful? And the question of knowledge and what do you mean by really faithful? And the things that we can tolerate and the things that we can't. Let's look at this since I queued it up. Apparently I had something in mind. Turn the volume on this time to change things up a little bit.
There's the volume again.
Too hot. Too hot. To mingle friendship far is mingling bloods. I have tremor cordis on me. My heart dances, but not for joy. Not joy. This entertainment may a free face put on, derive a liberty from heartiness, from bounty, fertile bosom, and well become the agent, may I grant. But to be paddling palms and pinching fingers as now they are, and making practiced smiles, as in a looking glass. Ah, sigh, as twere the morning of the deer. That is entertainment my bosom likes not, nor my brows. Mamilius, art thou my boy?
I my good lord.
Effects, why that's my borecock. Once has smudged thy nose. Ah, they say it is a copy out of mine. Come, captain, hoopla! We must be neat. Still virginaling is bound. How now, you wanton calf? Art thou my calf?
Yes, if you will, my lord.
Oh, thou wants a rough patch in the shoots that I have to be full like me. Yet they say we are almost as like as eggs. Women say so. That will say anything. But were they false, and when he wore his pulse as dice are to be wished by one that fixes no balls twixt his and mine. Yet were it true to say, this boy were like me. Come, Sir Page. Look on me with your welcome eye. Ooh, sweet villain. Most dearest, my collop. Calm thy down. May it be. Affection, thy intention stabs the centre. Thou dost make possible things not so held. Communicatest with dreams. How can this be? With what unreal thou co-active art and fellowest nothing meant, 'tis very credent thou mayest co-join with something, and thou dost. And that beyond commission. And I find it, and that to the infection of my brains and hardening of my brows.
Is there any mention that she's like round before like the baby's born? It seemed like I
Yeah,
was totally kind of shocked. So I was like, what?
Well, I mean, it's sort of after the fact, yeah. I mean, I guess it doesn't say up to that, but I think that it would have been, it would have been in production. It would have been obvious. Yeah. So, that's an interesting part in the. Because I mean, if they really are, and we kind of, I really like where that started because it's kind of starts just as the real flirtation scene ends. So we have an interesting relationship with reality. Reality. Just every time I say reality, just imagine that I'm saying reality. Because this is just Leontes. He narrates there's physical flirtation with the paddling palms and you know, like knowing glances and whatnot. But do we have to believe him? Like, was that scene right there really happening, or was that just kind of, we just departed that thing that was going on in the background with it? That's really weird. And you know what, I mean, it's really unfortunate, but there's just no way Hermione's that old at this point in the play. I just can't.
I know, I was like, whoa.
I'm just like, come on, you know, like, I mean, I'm sorry, I mean, I'm totally against giving, you know, like, well, I can say this because you guys are, everyone that's going for parts here is young, but I'm totally against all of the parts going toward young women, but no, I'm totally for it. Hermione's not an old lady.
Well, didn't people not live like that long? Like,
Well, I mean, that's
to be like having kids with that, like, you know, she looks older.
yeah, I mean, especially, no, I mean, at this point, she would have to be, I don't want to say that, because the life expectancy was much less
Yeah.
back then, but that was mainly because of infant mortality. Like, if you made it to adolescence, then it was pretty much more or less, you know, the comparable to what we do. It was you know, you're a baby is a total crapshoot, you know, and then dying in childbirth happened all the time too. But
Well, if this is only their second kid,
yeah,
then she must have been pretty young.
and he's got to be, I think, 20. No, I think he's 30 at this point.
Yeah, he looked, he was not 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because he's 46 at the end. No, because it's, I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. I used to know this for my exam, but I forgot it all. But so he's got to be 30, and she's supposed to be younger. So I'm guessing that she. Well, and the person playing her is a prepubescent boy, right?
Yeah.
In Shakespeare's time, so it's, you know, she's a girl. She's not. Yeah, Shakespeare wasn't really anywho. Aside from that, Hermione points out that he's already kind of disconnected with reality here. Where does this happen? It's got to be scene 2. Starts with too hot. Yeah. So this is after his, and we're going to get to this, the famous affection speech, that's the one that everybody says just doesn't mean nothing. My intention stabs at the center, that does make possible things. It's totally straightforward. But anyway, Hermione, something seems unsettled. Yeah, I think so. But let's back up and look at Leontes' hard, his textual evidence that gets him to the too hot, where that scene started. So let's go page 5. Just 1, 2. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's so dense. That's why it takes so long. It's so dense. So much happens and such. It's just very, very dense. All right. All right. As you note, I am not going to Act 1, Scene 1. I'm not going to spend a whole class on it. I'm not. But I would like Polixenes to read from 9 Changes.
9 changes of the watery star hath been the shepherd's note since we have left our throne without a burden. Time as long again would be filled up, my brother, with our thanks, and yet we should for perpetuity go hence in debt, and therefore, like a cipher, yet standing in rich place, I multiply with one we thank you, many thousands that go before.
Thank you. Marvelous. Already, just super crazy talking about ciphers, which was a new idea at the time, by the way. The idea of zero, it was just entering. You know, people are starting to, the magic of being able to write 10 instead of, but so that's interesting. What else is interesting? Blake was talking about this.
9 months after they get there.
Yeah, 9 changes of the watery star, 9 months, and the shepherds know since we left our throne without a burden. What's a burden?
In this case, the baby.
Yeah, so it can be any problem at all, but it's I guess a dysphomism for being pregnant, having a burden. Time is long again, would be filled up, my brother, with our thanks, and yet we should go for perpetuity, go hence in debt. Uh-oh, debt. We know that's bad, right? What happens to people that are in debt? Yeah, so some famous people that were in debt. Duncan. Yeah, okay. So, Cavell notes that the money, credit, debt, payment imagery, and I think we're reading Cavell, and this play is overwhelming. And if you start looking at all the money, debit, credit things, it's everywhere. That seems to be a big thing of how this is about. But and the debt thing might be even worse here. Why? Because I believe we've talked about this, but would somebody like to put forward what my beloved evolutionary psychologists think the origin of bartered transaction in primates is? World's oldest profession. Yeah. So the exchange is the exchange of in our friends the chimpanzees. Or the bonobos rather, it's the meat for sex swap, right? So they've got these certain bonobo females will provide services for someone that's willing to bring the equivalent of a hamburger, but they're usually just little monkeys. But I like to think of it as a hamburger, and so then they allow sexual access. So being in debt here, and Hermione. Talks about the debt to her. So what would the debt be if... All right, let's back up. So let's just... if Polixenes were using the cuckoo strategy, which we know the cuckoo strategy thanks to the class that shall not be mentioned, that I always keep mentioning. Don't think of a white elephant. This would be precisely when he would leave. Because in primate in the human as primate sexual exchange, the male's debt to females is to provide care for the offspring in exchange for sexual access to the precious female sex cells. And incidentally, as Leontes asks his son a few lines later, "Will you take eggs for money?" So the idea is that because men's sex cells are smaller and less valuable because there's just millions of them and they're all over the place. They have less evolutionary value than the female sex cell, which is much bigger, and of course the female has a much larger burden when she gets pregnant, right? So sympathy eating aside, I think that we can safely say that pregnancy is harder on the woman than the man. Well. Yeah, right. Fellas. Oh, we gotta put up with them, man. Just kidding. So, but anyway, so one of the big evolutionary psychology arguments for monogamous. I think we talked about this, right? Did we? About the monogamous thing is because the reason that humans, one of the reasons that humans are monogamous is because of concealed ovulation, and then it tricks the man into staying around, and then our hormones shut off, and our brains go stupid, and we think we're in love until kid's 4, and then we leave. Right?
That's a sad story.
Yeah. I haven't even told you about have I told you guys about the vasopressin and the oxytocin and the prairie voles and the montane voles? Okay, this is a good place to digress because we're about to start on a big huge thing. So I'm going to tell you about this because this is important. So there's these two kinds of little rodents called voles. Oh, there's actually many kinds of little rodents called voles. But and those of you psych people have probably heard this already, but I don't care because it's great. You can't learn it enough. So one of them, the prairie voles, are unlike most voles, strangely, oddly, pathologically monogamous. And not only that, this is just unheard of. Well, not unheard of, but very rare in rodents. The males stay around and raise the kids, the little pups they're called, and basically to maturity till they go and find a life partner of their own. Wow, that's great, right? And then they've got this really, really closely related species called the montane vole. And the montane voles are the complete opposite. They're just completely, rampantly, blindly promiscuous. They don't stick around together. They think it's really weird if you do. They just minimal, absolute minimal parental care, and so they're just complete deadbeat party, party animal, party bulls, and so you think, wow, but it's really weird. So this is a puzzling thing. This is a fun thing to study, right? Because you've got these two, like you and I couldn't tell the difference between a prairie vole and a montane vole, but this completely different behavioral structure. So what they do is they start screwing around with the oxytocin, and which is just a hormone that's released primarily in what it's best known for in humans is they call it the cuddle hormone, or a misnomer is the love hormone. It's it makes you lactate, it induces labor, it makes you bond with your baby, all this sort of thing. And then I guess apparently it's also released in females after orgasm or whatever, but I don't know. I never read about that stuff. And then, but anyway, so you and then vasopressin kind of does similar things, and oxytocin works in men too. But anyway, I don't want to. We won't talk about neurochemistry here. But anyway, you tinker with the receptors on a montane vole, and you basically just make their brains able to process oxytocin and vasopressin, and all of a sudden, that the slut next door is just like, it's my dream, and it turns them into prairie voles. They become family guys and family gals. They start raising their kids, and then the same thing happens if you block the receptors in the prairie voles. Bam on the head, dad comes home drunk with, and so that's what it is. That's what all this soulmate nonsense and crap, right? It's just, and you're like, well, that's voles. Well, how about this? If you could test your potential life partner to find out what their vasopressin receptors, so this would work for males, and you could predict like their fidelity based on this it's a gene that affects the vasopressin receptors. Would you do it? Because guess what? We're about 10 years away. But you can go have your man tested to find out if, no, seriously, there's 3 different kinds of receptors, and you can predict marital happiness and fidelity based on which one of these receptors is in the guy's brain. Oh no! It really isn't anybody's fault at all. We're just completely tanked. All right, let me give you your quizzes back. Does she seem mean? Not mean enough? Tell it like it is.
She just tells us what it is.
Okay.
But she has no filter.
Yeah. Say compromised prefrontal cortex. Everything just kind of squirts through. Okay, and the question again was.
How does Paulina respond to Leontes' response?
Yeah, all right, so first of all, what is Leontes' response to Paulina's punishment?
Sort of like, yeah, I deserve the worst.
He sounds kind of into it. Go on, go on. Thou canst not speak too much. I have deserved all tongues to talk their bitterest. Go on, go on. Yeah, I think there's a little masochism there. And then, so Paulina, all of a sudden, I'm sorry for it, all faults I make. When I shall come to know them, I do repent. Alas, I have showed too much the rashness of a woman. So how would we characterize that response if we were answering a question?
More so.
Yeah, but then, so it's remorseful. Well, ostensibly remorseful, right? Because what's gone and what's past help should be past grief. Do not receive affliction at my petition. I beseech you rather, let me be punished. I have minded you of what you should forget. That and then she's saying, I'll speak no more. I'll speak no more. I'll say nothing. But like I'll when she's saying I'll speak no more. I'll speak no more. I'll say nothing. I just really loved your queen, and you really screwed the pooch on to do something this stupid. And Camilla says, I must believe you.
Wait, what was the answer? I couldn't hear that.
One more time.
Dare not know, cannot name the disease, and may not answer.
Yeah, may not answer, cannot name the disease. I dare not know, my lord. 19 and 20, that's lines 378, 387, and 398.
For answer for, what's that, 1920?
Years.
Oh,
Pages 19 and 20,
okay.
and then the line numbers for the.
I had a question from that act too.
Okay.
What is the nature of the planet? If we know to barricade the belly, what disease do many have and not know it? Was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I read it a couple times. I couldn't find it. 20 in that same section.
Yeah. So, what is the nature of the planet? What can be done to barricade the belly? What disease do many have and not know it?
Nature of the planet's body.
Yeah. All right, so there's one. Body.
To barricade the belly, I got to only have one possible plotter.
There's nothing that can barricade the body. There's a belly. That's what
I think you're taking it to a logical conclusion, which is fine, but I think the text says no barricado for a belly.
Where is that?
Page 13 or line 204. I know, and this kind of did me. So I have an announcement about the final.
No final.
But then I wouldn't have a bunch of grading to do after classes are over.
You can just pretend.
Oh, I do
Use
anyway.
your imagination.
Just write essays on uniforms and you can reduce.
No, I am going to have an option. It's going to be pretty much the same format as the last gig. But the one small caveat that might appeal to a very small minority of you is that you can submit your own essay question to me for approval if you'd like to write on something that you're interested in instead of something I'm interested in. So and you'll need to do that by let's say next Monday, and you'll just email it to me and I'll say hell to the no or whatever, man. That sort of thing. Questions? Yeah.
Can we turn in the essay before the test?
Sure. All right. Yeah.
Are the essays up online?
Not yet. They will be. I'll do that this weekend. Okay. So and now we've got this this Winter's Tale play. Slows down a little bit, doesn't it? The reading. It's good gravy. I spend a lot of time on those stupid reading questions. Everything's so packed. I mean, you can tell it's just really, really dense. I mean, there's really at least 2.5 plays in this, and yeah. So there's that. It does the next part does speed up quite a bit actually. The first 2 acts, the tragic sequence, as it's sometimes called, is really dense, really tough hacking. You need your machete. Leontes isn't always entirely making the most clear statements. And so we've got a quiz on the first 2 acts, first 3 acts. Yeah. Okay. So questions? Yes, ma'am.
Act 3, Scene 2, number 16, how does Paulina respond to Leontes' response, and how does her vow to not admonish maintenance? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of typos. I did the questions on I was changing the RAM in my computer, so I typed them all on my iPad. I spelled Polixenes wrong every single time. Polixenes? Polixenes? Anywho, so that question. So does anyone have an answer for that? Suggestion? So let's think of where it's at. 3-2, you said?
Yeah.
All right, so Paulina's admonishing Leontes. She's sort of a, she's not real polite, is she? She's sort of a, what's your sense? Do we like Paulina? This one, and you're a horrible person, but I'm not going to say anything. All right? Yes, no? Okay. Does that answer your question? All right, I'm not supposed to answer the question, so that's the last time I'm ever going to do that again. Okay, any other questions? No? Sweet.
Oh, 28 on,
On the one with 28?
Act 1, 2, it was, again, you wrote 20 questions. It was, what is Camillo's condition? No, it was Camillo dare not space, cannot space, and may not. I have the same 3 answers for, I have 3 of the same answers.
All right, does anyone want to,
Dare not know what bothers Leontes, cannot say what bothers Leontes, and may not say what bothers Leontes. So that's not right.
I thought it was dare not know, cannot name the disease, and may not answer. It's all split up though in text.
yeah. Anyone else?
I have no say answer.
No say answer?
What was Blake's answer? Disease? Speak?
It would have been cool for me to put some line numbers or page numbers or something.
Dare not know, cannot name the disease, and may not answer. That's what I have.
Yeah, that looks right. There's no, I dare not, do not. There's that hilarious scene. We'll talk about that. And I really like it when we're going to talk about it, but I can't pass it without saying it. He's asked, do you think I'm such a dunderhead that I